Hey guys, how are you guys? No, like really, how are you? I know, I know, guys, it's been a lot going on, but I have to say this. You guys have really been like hitting me up and the questions and comments. I'm loving the feedback that you guys have been giving, especially those of you checking us out in the other countries. Hey to India, hey to Russia, hey to Italy. I love it. I think this particular conversation is going to be one that is going to span across not only generations, but span across the world. Why? Because it's all about Agent Innocent. I know when you look at it, you're like, what is this episode going to be about? I'm super excited about my guest that I have on today. Hello, Melanie. How are you?
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
I am as well. And so, guys, the reason why I'm excited about this is because Melanie and I, although I, in my mind, am a Secret Service agent, Melanie actually was a Secret Service agent at the age of 22, being one of the youngest to be in that industry and be in that position. And oh, we got some stories to tell. Yeah, well, not me per se, but Melanie does. So, with that being said, Melanie, let us know a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Sounds good. Well, my name is Melanie Lentz, and I became a Secret Service agent when I was 22 years old, ripe old age of 22 back in 2007, with absolutely zero clues what I was getting myself into. But what I realized is that while I was a total misfit with no military or law enforcement experience, I was thrust into an environment where I was trained to be an expert in protecting other people. And my story, yeah, there's a lot of exciting adventures and travel, but the real crux of it is that I protected others for many years and failed miserably at doing that in my personal life. And just like all bad habits, they'll tend to catch up with you over time. And they did with me in a very big way. And to the point to where I left the job I loved so very much almost 10 years later and started over in my 30s. And I was so angry and bitter about having to do that, but I knew deep down I needed to. And what I realized looking back was protecting other people gave me so many incredible tools. I was obsessed with protection, the security plans, and all that stuff, and how applicable it was as I was starting over to implement the same security plans I was doing for other people into my own life. And so that's kind of how I live my life today is I create my own security plan and then I check in with myself and there's always little adjustments, but I didn't like who I became as a Secret Service agent. And they were my own fault, my own decisions, my own bad habits of saying yes to work and no to my spouse and my family. But today I can say I'm proud of the woman I'm becoming because it finally clicked that it was time to start protecting myself. And so that's kind of what I'm all about. Little intro. I'm excited to dive in with you.
I'm excited as well. So, okay, in my mind, I'm a Secret Service agent. And so I find things out in my mind. That's all those years of watching Criminal Minds and CSI, y'all. But with that being said, man, you made a really good point. When we think about somebody being in that level of security, we think about all of this background that led them there. And
Right.
normally it is because they've been in the service. It's because, this is something that they took up in not high school, but in college or, those different things. So what led you to Secret Service?
Yeah. Well, I did not grow up as the girl that was going to be, the Secret Service agent, rappelling out of the helicopter, saving everybody in the nick of time. I wasn't that kid. I was painfully shy all growing up. So I had no idea what I wanted to be. I changed my major from music to exercise science. I mean, we didn't know what we wanted to do. Like many. I mean, this is very relatable. A lot of us have no clue. But what put the idea in my head was my grandpa, of all people. His best buddy's daughter was a Secret Service agent, and she had a psychology background. And so she didn't have the military or the law enforcement experience. And my grandpa was always telling me all the cool stories about her travels, stuff that her dad would relay back to him, over their coffee, old man coffee talks and such. And my grandpa was like, Mel, you were a college athlete. You were a good student. You're smart. You have the, good bones. You can, you could do this job. Maybe you should apply. Hey, think about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, grandpa, like, I've never even been in a fight. How am I going to protect somebody else, but you know what? When you get towards the end of college and you realize, I need to start figuring out a job, sometimes desperation will give you a little courage to try something. And my mind was, okay, I'll fill out the application. It would be a super cool team to play for. And maybe I'm, not meant to be on it, but what's the worst they can say? No, or not even respond at all. So I sat there, filled out the application and just like so nervously turned it in. I laminated the stupid thing. Like I didn't need to do that. I was like the type A, like this is going to look polished. And I turned it in thinking I'd never hear anything. And then I started researching because the type A in me is like, I'm going to know, when I go into that interview, if they call me, I'm going to be prepared. And then the more I started reading about it, the more I thought, I really want this. Like, I want this bad now. Like, can I even do this? So I ended up passing the written test barely with no experience. I mean, I squeaked by on that one. And then every little step, that initial interview, a panel interview, the polygraph, medical background, all that stuff, one by one over like a 6-month period, I was starting to pass these little things. And I thought, is this going to actually happen? So I had to really tell myself, what do you have to offer as a young age? What do I have? And what I had was I was trainable. So when I went into those interviews, I said, no, I don't have the military. I don't have the law enforcement. But you know what? I have the drive and I am too stubborn to quit. So you're going to have to send me home. I'm not going to quit. And that's what I said, I'm not going to quit. What is the point of training for 8 long months, if not to show me what I need to know? Show me, I'm right here. And they bought it. So gulp in, June 2007, I got a call from the supervisor in the Los Angeles field office. And I was born and raised in Southern California in the desert, not in the city, but about 100 miles away. And they said, we have a spot for you in the Los Angeles field office. Do you want it? And if so, pack your bags, you leave in 3 weeks. And with that phone call, my life took a much different turn than I thought. So that's how that happened. And, 3 weeks later, I found myself standing in formation for the first time with a bunch of overgrown dudes with, biceps and military haircuts that, one of these does not belong. So that started a nice long journey.
Oh my goodness. I love that. So first and foremost, we have to say this, grandparents rock. They
totally.
Listen, they rock. They don't really care about what they say goes. And so to all the grandparents that may listen in, you're awesome. Just in case no one else told you.
Yeah. BPA, you're awesome when you listen to this. Thank you.
There you go. So I love that. And then I was listening to your process and man, a lot of times when we think about it, if something is going to take a length of time, man, we get discouraged, we get frustrated, and it's like, man, is it ever going to happen? So how did you encourage yourself during that time?
During the training portion, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was hard. Very early on, I realized that there was a big learning curve that, they hand you a pair of handcuffs and I had never handcuffed anybody. And so it was kind of one of those, like, they just click, they've done it a million times and I hadn't ever done it. And so there was a lot of behind the scenes extra practice on my part. And I just had to tell myself, you're not going to make it unless you do this. There was extra work for me. But there's a funny story where, how if you've never been in a physical fight, they always say everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, that famous Mike Tyson quote. And early on in training, they lined us in formation and the instructor, paces dramatically back and forth, staring us down. And he says, some of you may have never been in a fight and you might not know how you're going to react. And he looks at me, of course, so I know that's who they're talking to. And he said, but today we're going to see what happens. And I'm like, oh no, shaking in my brand new boots. And so they start pairing us up with our classmates. And there were 3 females in my class, two of whom were a little bit older than me and had experience. One was in the military and law enforcement, and then one was in law enforcement before. So then they paired them together because they were about the same height, but I'm a little bit taller. So I was with one of the guys. And we put our little mouthpiece in and, our gloves, and I'm standing there like, oh no, this is the day I go home. And the guy, they told us to punch each other and to spar, and I'd never done that. Well, this guy just clocked me right in the face. And, my ponytail went flopping back and everybody kind of laughed a little bit. And I was like, what? So I didn't know what I was doing, but I fought back. And I never knew that was my response, that fight or flight. Do I cower or do I fight? And I was like, what in the world? So I fought poorly, but I did. And we went out into the hallway after for a little water break. And this poor guy comes running out and he's like, Melanie, I'm so sorry. I hit you so hard. I've never hit a woman in my life. And I didn't want them to make me do it twice. So I had to make it count the first time. And I thought, you didn't do me any favors by going easy because I need to learn. But I just felt so bad for him because he was just distraught that he was the one guy in the class that had to punch the girl first, But I learned that I could fight back and I got better. It was just more I had to practice. And, there was funny at that end of the training, we all sit up on the stage, all our families, clap, and congratulations to Special Agent Class, 273, you've made it. Well, the boss, it was a female. She was the supervisor of the whole training. She said that my shoulders came up and I sighed, the biggest sigh she'd ever seen somebody give on that stage. Just like your shoulders went up and down, like, oh my gosh, I made it, And she said, I've never seen someone so relieved to know they passed. And so I made it. And, a few bumps and bruises and lots of practice, but it definitely was a very challenging 8 months coming from behind. But I was lucky. I had a lot of those two other girls in class were great helps. One of them I'm still really close with even today. And I had a bunch of big brothers too, because they knew how badly I wanted it. And so I had, a lot of dudes helping me out like, Mel, you need to practice that. That looked a little rough today. So, I was blessed to have people that had my back early on in my career at such a young age. So it could have gone a different direction. So.
I love it. I love it. As entrepreneurs, the reason why we're having this conversation is because this mirrors that entrepreneurial journey in so many different ways. When we get into it, a lot of times we don't know what we're getting into, but somebody said it may have been a good idea, or we have a hobby that we're really good at. And we said, what, let me try this and see how it works. And man, we are definitely in for a fight when we go ahead and say yes to doing this business. Now, in the journey that you've had, were there any moments that really completely and utterly shocked you? Like to the point where you were just like, I still can't believe that actually happened.
Oh yeah. There was one instance, probably not what you're thinking, but about, I think this was about a little over 8.5, 9-ish years into my career. My marriage was in trouble. As you can imagine, I had been a very absentee wife for a long time. And, while not everything was my fault, I own my part in that downfall, but my marriage was in trouble and it was going to be hard to move to Washington, DC, which is what an agent's path is. You don't become a Secret Service agent to stay in the field, in LA your whole career. At some point you do that transfer to the big details. And it was my turn. It was time for me to go. And it was going to be hard to move. My husband at the time had a job that was secured in LA County, and it was going to be hard on both of us to be transplanting. There was an opening that happened in Nancy Reagan's detail. She was still alive in her 90s, but she still got protection as a former first lady. And she was in Los Angeles. So there was an opening and I was offered the position to avoid the move. So I could still fulfill those protection requirements, but not have to move and stay. It was too little, too late for the marriage. And I was really bitter about going to that detail because I loved my job so much. But what shocked me is that I was strategically, perhaps little God winks in my life, placed me in that position when I needed it the most. And that's kind of what shocked me going back, is that when my marriage was in trouble, I was put in an environment with a small, close-knit group of people protecting Nancy Reagan who had their act together, who had made career sacrifices and changes to their life for the betterment of the long game with their families, where in LA and DC, I would have been given advice that was very career oriented and always career oriented, which has its merit. You know, I'm all about the hustle and doing your job and doing well and being successful. But there was a time and a place where I needed to take a step back. And I was put in that position, not against my will, because I, of course, accepted the position, but wasn't what I wanted. And what shocked me is that just a few months after that, Nancy Reagan passed away. And I went to work that morning, not realizing I was going to be in the embalming room. And that's kind of morbid to talk about, but, you know, I was there, and that was a shocking experience and something that, you know, I'll always live with. But that week was probably a most shocking week for work, but also for myself, because throughout that week and at the funeral and realizing I'm going to get a transfer somewhere else and my life is going to change a lot here real quick, is that I realized I didn't like who I had become. Like, that was the shocking part, is that I sit there and I'm having to reflect, and I realized, you know, Nancy Reagan's death was almost like a catalyst that brought me back to life, because I look back and I said, who is this person? You know, what happened to that 22-year-old that wanted to live a meaningful life and do something good and be, you know, protect, you know, others and do good in the world? Like, what happened to her? Because 9 years later, I'm successful at work. I have a good reputation. People liked me. I was good at my job. I loved it, but yet I was miserable. And I looked in the mirror and I said, you have to make some changes. And that's going to be real scary. And a few months later, and this is kind of the funny full circle of my Secret Service career, it was July 2016. So it was the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention. It was a campaign year. So all hands on deck. I was in the Republican convention was the first week in Ohio, and then I would go to the Democratic one the following week. But the hotels were full. So we were housed in dorm rooms at Kent State University. So here is this full circle. I applied to be a Secret Service agent in college, and, you know, big moves. I'm making big moves at a young age. And here I am. I wake up one morning at the convention. I am like 10 days from transferring to DC. This is the most uncharacteristic thing I have ever done in my life. I woke up and I just knew I have to leave. I can't go. If I go to DC, I don't get better. I continue down this path. So I texted my boss in a dorm room at Kent State University almost 10 years later, almost 10 years to the day, in fact, from being hired with the Secret Service. And I just said, boss, I can't go. I don't know what to do. I know this is going to cause some wrinkles, you know, in scheduling and manpower, but I have to do something with my life. I have to make some changes. And he was so gracious about it. I mean, of course, my detail was small and they knew what was going on in my personal life and that I was dealing with a lot. And so I quit my job, finished my assignments, and then came home, went to go turn in all my gear. And, you know, they do your exit interview. You know, I'm handing back these things I've been carrying around for so long, you know, my gun, my badge, my ballistic vest, my, you know, credentials, all this stuff, that government BlackBerry that just never stopped going off. And I hand it all back in one day. I mean, it took like 20 minutes to get it all in there. And they hand me a validated parking pass because I don't have a garage code, you know, pass anymore. And they said, good luck to you. Not, we want you to stay. I wish you'd reconsider. You know, like my ego wanted them to talk me out of it. Like, I love this. Like, please let me know that that you need me. But they didn't say that. And I walked out into the hallway to the elevator landing, and this guy comes out. He's a younger guy. He's got a gun and a badge, but I didn't know him. That office is a big one. So it wasn't unusual to not recognize everyone. And he says, Melanie, or no, he didn't even know my name. He said, hey, I'm so-and-so. You know, you must be one of the new agents in the office. And with that, I was like, I've already been replaced. You know, what matters in the long term was that someone else just picked up the job I could do, but I don't know who I am. I suddenly, in a one split second, became Melanie Lentz, not Special Agent Melanie Lentz. And that was eye-opening because I had no idea who that Melanie Lentz was. And so I wish I could say everything got better and that it was an easy transition, but it wasn't, because as I had to get over my anger, do a lot of forgiveness, I'm divorced, depressed. I don't have a job. I quit my job without a plan. Like, who am I? I had to start reflecting back and realize those were not wasted years, because I needed to start protecting myself. And subconsciously, by quitting, I was starting to do that for the first time. So my takeaway from the Secret Service is that, yeah, there were a lot of shocking moments, things that shocked myself and like, who am I? But at the end of the day, if I don't start protecting myself, I don't make a difference, because it starts inside. I can fix the exterior, but until I address in here and start doing something about this in my inside, nothing changed. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But today, I started writing Agent Innocent, as you said at the beginning, and that book turned into a very healing process, because I realized as I was writing it that, oh my gosh, this all applies to real life. I didn't practice good access control. That's a big thing. I forgot who I wanted to be. I forgot my legacy that I wanted to leave. And a lot of that stemmed from, I allowed other things access to me, like my job mostly, to control my actions and my self-worth and my everyday life, when in reality, that access probably needed to be limited. And I revoked access to my family when that was a positive addition I should have granted. So that kind of ever-changing protection is all about access control, but I practiced it poorly. And so today I kind of have, maybe it's a little bit of boundaries is kind of a better way of saying it, but learning that there are some things that matter a little bit more than just that hustle and bustle of making money and being successful. And that balance is tough in any job, but I've had to use protection to help me get there today. So.
Oh my goodness, SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, this has been a phenomenal episode. First and foremost, I need y'all to go and get the book. I need you to go get it. I need you to read it, and I need you to review it. Yes, I need you to do all three. Why? Because guess what? It's stories like these that really do, resonate with us on so many different levels, many times more than we ever could have imagined. But guess what? Success is possible. Living your dream is possible. And sometimes the dream may change, and that's okay. Trust and believe. It's all right. There are some other things that we can do. And one of the things that I love is that, it's that inner work, and we make that decision and we go all in with it. So I absolutely love this episode. Melanie, let them know how they can get the book and how they can connect with you to talk to you and find out more.
Absolutely. Well, the book is available on Amazon. There's a paperback, Kindle, and the audiobook just launched this past week. Yours truly read my whole book aloud. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's available. A lot of people listen to books like myself now. So that's all platforms are available there. You can reach me at my website, which is melanielentz.com, just my first and last name there. And I'm on, Facebook, Instagram at Melanie Lentz author. And I would love to connect with you. Let me know what you think of the book. I have another little project coming out, kind of geared towards the younger audience in May. It's called Advanced Work, a personal protection assignment. So it's a little workbook kind of geared towards more of the high school, early college age ladies, about all the things I wish I knew before I started adulting in the real world. And so kind of a more expanding on the lessons from Agent Innocent. So I'm really excited about that little workbook, and that'll be out May 1st. So yeah.
Awesome. I love it. SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, listen, this is all for you, because without you, there is no SpeakEasy Podcast. Continue to join the conversation, bit.ly/World Voice Community. Guys, it's been a great episode. You may need to listen to this one a few times. And until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.